Hello, everybody. So we have here another set of given to solve using our component method. So we have the vector A that is 5 meters directed east, vector B 15 meters 30 degrees south of west, and vector C 10 meters 287 degrees. Now, kung titingnan natin, si vector B tsaka si vector C, magkaiba yung pagkasulat ng kanilang mga directions. Bakit? Dahil kay vector B, binigay sa atin dito yung reference angle. Wherein kay vector C, binigay na sa atin yung angle na following the counterclockwise direction. So always remember na kapag nagsasubstitute tayo ng mga values using our FD cosine theta at saka FD sine theta, kailangan naka-counterclockwise direction na yung ating mga angle. Now, paano ba natin gagawin yon? So, meron ako ditong maliit na table para um, lalagyan natin mamaya ng mga values after getting the x and y component of every given vector. Now, the first thing that we need to do is to look for the x and y components of our three vectors, the vector A, B, and C, using our sine and cosine functions. So let us solve first for our vector A. Okay? So for vector A, dito ko siya isusulat. A sub x is we have here d cosine theta. So kung titingnan natin, yung vector A natin is directed east. Now, paano ba yan yung ating vector A? Ilan ba yung or how much ba yung angle ng ating vector A? So we have here, so this is for the vector A. So this is directed east. So let's say from here, papunta siyang east. So eto na yung vector A natin. Eto siya. So, ilang degrees ba yung meron sa east? That is 0 degrees. So, ilalagay natin dito sa theta is 0. So, we have a sub x is we have 5 meters, 5 cosine 0. So, 5 cosine 0 is equal to 5. So, malagay natin yung 5 meters kasi cosine 0 is equal to 1. Next, a sub y naman. So, we have d sine theta. Substitute lang, we have 5 sine 0. So, always remember that sine 0 is equal to 0. So, 0 times 5, that is equal to 0. So, ilagay natin sa table yung ating values kay vector A. So, we have here 5 meters tsaka 0. Okay? Now that we are done with our vector A, punta naman tayo kay vector B. So, si vector B, paano ba siya natin ilalagay sa ating Cartesian plane? So, this is for the vector B. Eto si vector B. So, we have north, south, west, tsaka east. So, according to our given, that is 30 degrees south of west. So, gagamitin ko dito yung aking protractor para i-measure yung 30 degrees. So, nandito yung 30 degrees. Ayan siya. So, this is south of west. So, eto yung 30 degrees natin. Ito yung south of west. So, ito yung itsura ni 15 meters, 30 degrees south of west. Okay, so paano ba yan? Kung titingnan natin dito, yung ating angle or yung reference angle to be specific is located sa third quadrant. So, di ba, kung matatandaan nyo, kapag yung ating reference angle ay located on the third quadrant, we're going to add our reference angle to 180. So ano ba yung gagawin natin sa ating angle before substituting it in our equation? So dahil nasa third quadrant siya, we're going to have this 180 degrees plus the 30 degrees na ating reference angle. So 180 plus 30, we have 210 degrees. So this is 210 degrees. So etong 210 degrees na ito yung isa-substitute natin sa ating equation. So we have here b sub x is we have d cosine theta. So ilan ba yung theta natin? So we have 15 cosine. Yung theta, that is 210 degrees. Ayan siya, b sub x. So let's use our calculator here. So 15 cosine 210, that is negative 12.99. We have negative 12.99 meters. Now, solve naman natin yung y. d sine theta. So, b sub y is equal to 15 sine 210. So, i-change lang natin si cosine ng sine. So, this is equal to negative 7.5. Negative 7.5 meters. Okay? So, paano ko ba malalaman kung tama yung answer ko? Take note that our vector B is located on the third quadrant. So, kapag ka yung iyong vector is located on the third quadrant, so, yung ating y tsaka x dito are both negative, dapat. So, titingnan natin kung tama yung answer natin. Yung x natin is negative. Yung y natin is negative. So, therefore, we can prove that tama pala na yung vector b natin is located on the third quadrant. Okay? Now, it's time for us to write the values. Let's put the values in the table. So, we have negative 12.99 meters for the x at negative 7.5 meters for the y. Now that we are done with our vector b, then it's time naman for us to solve for our vector c. Pero paano naman natin ilalagay si vector c in our Cartesian plane? So dito ko ilalagay yung vector c natin. Okay. So, here it is. So, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, yung vector c natin is already following the counterclockwise direction. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng counterclockwise direction? So, ito na yung direction, nakaganito yan na yung direction ng ating angle kay vector c. So, balikan natin yung mga angles in every direction. So, for the east, we have 0 degrees. For the north, we have 90 degrees. For the west, we have 180 degrees. For the south, we have 270 degrees. Now, based on our given, it's 287 degrees. And, di ba, naka-counterclockwise direction na siya. So, nakapalibot na dito yung ating angle for vector C. Pero, kulang pa tayo ng 17 degrees kasi 270 lang to. Kailangan natin mag-add ng 70 degrees, 17 degrees para ma-meet natin yung 287. Okay? So, ano ba yung purpose ng adding na yan? Wala lang, para ilagay natin na tama ng tama yung vector natin on the fourth quadrant. So, paano mo malalaman talaga na on the fourth quadrant yung vector natin? Because, from first quadrant to third quadrant, 270 na siya. So, since nag-exit na siya sa 270 degrees, therefore, we can say na on the fourth quadrant na located yung ating vector C. So, let's say, this is 17 degrees. Ayan siya. So, eto na yung 287 degrees. From here, following the counterclockwise direction, this is already 287 degrees. Ayan siya ha, 287 degrees. Lagyan ko lang siya ng arrow na pa ganyan. Okay, 287 na yan. Okay, now the question is, do we need to use this? Di ba, miss, sabi mo, kapag on the fourth quadrant na yung ating angle, isa-subtract natin ito sa 360. Pero yung question ko is, kailangan pa bang isubtract si 287 degrees kay 360? There's no need na because it is already following the counterclockwise direction. If hindi siya nagfa-follow sa counterclockwise direction, then that's the time that we are going to subtract it to 360 degrees. Kagaya ng second vector natin. So, si second vector natin is not following the counterclockwise direction. Hindi niya fina-follow itong counterclockwise direction. That is why ginamit natin itong equation na to para makuha natin yung angle from the east following the counterclockwise direction. So, this is 210 degrees. Pero kay vector C, hindi na siya natin kailangan pang i-plus or i-minus kasi naka-counterclockwise na siya. Ano na lang yung gagawin natin dito? We just automatically substitute this value in our equation in looking for the x and y component. Okay, now let's do that. We have c sub x, so d cosine theta. So, ano ba yung angle na gagamitin natin again? Ito yung 287 degrees. So, c sub x is we have 10 cosine 287 degrees. So, let us solve it using our calculator here. 10 cosine 287 is equal to, ulitin ko na lang. So, 10 cosine 287, that is 2.93 meters. Now, let us go to the c sub y. So, d sine theta, okay, 10 sine 287 degrees, that is equal to, let's just simply change the cosine to sine. So, this is equal to negative 0.56, negative 9.56 meters. Paano mo malalaman na tama yung answer mo? Diba, yung ating third vector is located on the fourth quadrant. Diba? So, kapag yung ating vector ay nasa fourth quadrant, we have to make sure na positive yung x natin, tsaka negative yung y. So, titingnan natin kung tama yung answer natin. So, eto, positive yung x natin, dito negative yung y. So, therefore, tama na nasa fourth quadrant talaga yung ating vector C. Now, let us write our values inside the table. So, we have 2.93 meters, and then we have negative 9.56 meters. Now that we got our x and y components, let us add the values. Summation of d sub x, we have there 5 meters plus negative 12.99 plus 2.93. Ayan, so we have negative 5.06 meters. Always remember that if you want to add values with a negative sign to come up with the correct answer, you have to enclose it in a parenthesis just like this. Okay, let us solve for the summation of d sub y. We have negative 7.5 added to negative 9.56. That is equal to negative 17.06. Negative 17.06 meters. Na kung titingnan natin yung ating summation of x is negative, summation of y is negative. So since yung x and y natin dyan ay negative, we can simply say that yung ating resultant vector should be located on the third quadrant. Again, it should be located on the third quadrant kasi negative si x tsaka negative si y. Okay, now let us try to plot these values in our Cartesian plane, and we have to make sure that these values will coincide to our graphical method. So I will be using here the back portion of our previous calculated values. Ayan siya. For plotting our vectors here. Ipa-plot natin lahat to. Okay? So this is for the x-axis. And this is for the y-axis. Okay. Now let us plot our first vector. We have 5 meters papuntang east. So, lagay ko dito yung 5 meters going to the east. So, let's say this is the 5 meters papuntang east. Oh, sorry. Hindi siya nakapatong kay x. Ayan. Nice. This is 5 meters. This is for our vector A. Now, let us use our head-to-tail method. So, kailangan 30 degrees south of west yung vector B natin. So, lagay ko dito yung 30 degrees. Ayan siya dyan. And magme-measure ako ng 15 meters. So, let's say this is equal to 15 meters. It's here. Let me add another 5 meters. Ayan. So, this is vector B. 15 meters. Nandito yung 30 degrees. I'm going to write here another small Cartesian plane for our vector C. So this is 270. So I'll be adding here 10, 15, 17 degrees para makuha natin yung 287. And this is for our, ayan, this is for our vector C. This is 10 meters. Okay, so dito natin ilalagay yung ating resultant vector. This is for the resultant vector. I'm going to use the broken lines para mas ma-distinguish natin kung sino dito yung ating resultant vector. Now, let us solve for our resultant vector. But by the way, let us plot first yung ating summation of x at saka summation of y. Now, based on our calculation, yung summation of x natin is negative. Dahil negative siya, it should be directed to the negative x-axis. Yung y natin is negative also, so it should be directed south or it should be lying on our negative y-axis. So, saan ba dito makikita yung ating x tsaka yung ating y? So, this is where they are located. So this is for our y, summation of y. Ito siya, papunta siyang negative. Ayan, papunta siyang negative y. Summation of d sub y, and this is 17.06 meters. Okay, and this is for the x. Ayan, kailangan papunta din siyang negative x. So, dito yung arrow. So, summation of d sub x, that is equal to 5.06 meters. Baka nagtataka kayo, bakit hindi ko siya nilagyan ng negative sign? There's no need for us to put the negative sign because the arrowhead will now tell us that it is directed south and this is directed west. Ito na yung magbibigay sa atin ng direction. Dito sa ating calculations, since we don't have the arrowheads, then therefore we're going to use the positive and the negative signs to determine the direction of our vectors. So yung negative sign dito, nagde-determine na papunta siyang west. Ito, nagde-determine na pupunta siyang south. Okay? Now that we are able to plot our values in our Cartesian plane, then let us solve for our resultant magnitude using the Pythagorean theorem. So we are going to look for the d sub r for our resultant displacement. So we have d sub r is equal to the square root of summation of d sub x squared plus summation of d sub y squared. Substitute lang the values. We have negative 5.06 meters squared plus negative 17.06 meters squared. Bakit negative yung values dito? Because again, yung negative sign will indicate their direction. And here, going back to our calculations, negative sila dito. So, kailangan yung ilalagay natin dito should be negative also. So, let us square each values. We have negative 5.06 squared. So this is equal to 25.60. Yan. We have 25.60. 60, ayan, 6 siya ha, meter squared plus we have negative 17.0 291.04 squared. By the way, ha, let me just double check this one. Eto, double check ko lang ha. 5, double check lang. We just have to make sure na tama yung calculations natin. May double check lang ako dito. O kaya pala, it should be 2.92. This should be 2.92 ha. Ayan, 2.92 siya. Hopefully, mas magigets nyo lang siya. And then, we have, let us add the values. 5 plus negative 12.99 plus 2.92. Ayan. It should be negative 5.07. Anyway, konti lang naman yung discrepancy. Ayan. So, in our calculation here, lagay natin dito, 7. You can put some corrections there para mas tama yung calculations natin. So, let us have here negative 5.07 square. So, that is 25.70. Ayan, it should be 25.70. Ayan ha, paki-double check lang. Okay, so let us add the two values. We have 25.70 plus 291.04. That is equal to 316.74. So square root of 316.74 meter squared. So let us square the answer. That is 17.80. So we have 17.80 meters. Bakit nag-meters? Dahil kinancel natin yung square sa unit at saka yung square root. So this is now for our magnitude. This is 17.80 meters. Okay, next. Let us solve naman for our angle. Paano ba natin makukuha yung final angle natin? So, di ba? Can you still remember yung sinabi ko na yung reference angle natin must be relative to the x-axis. So, kailangan nakadikit yung ating reference angle sa ating x-axis. So, saan ba dito ilalagay yung reference angle? It should be right here. Kasi again, kailangan nakadikit yung ating reference angle sa ating x-axis. Pero we don't have the triangle here. Paano ba natin kukunin yung ating angle? So with that, let us use our parallelogram method. Kung gaano kahaba at kung ano yung direction dito, it should be the same on the other side. So this is for our y-axis. Ayan siya. And this is for our x-axis. So we have here 5.07 meters tsaka 17.06 meters dito. Now that we got our values here, we can use now our tangent function. So we have tangent, theta is equal to O over A, y over x equal to summation of d sub y over summation of d sub x. Substitute na lang natin. We have, idiretso na natin ha. We have theta is equal to transpose tangent on the other side. We have arc tangent. Okay. So, yung value ng d sub y natin is 17.06. Pero we have to put the negative sign. So, negative 17.06 meters divide negative 5.07 meters. Again, nilagyan natin ng negative signs dito because this is lying on the negative x-axis, tsaka this is lying on the negative y-axis. Now, let us cancel the units. So, let us have here shift tan negative 17.06 over negative 5.07. That is equal to 73.45. So we have our reference angle, which is 73.45 degrees. Take note yung ating vector is lying on the, or is located on the third quadrant. And yung ating reference angle is 73.45. Since it is located on the third quadrant, ano ba yung gagawin natin? We are going to add our reference angle to our 180 degrees. Bakit? Kasi, eto yung angle na hahanapin natin. Eto. It should be following the counterclockwise direction. Kaya, nag-add tayo ng 180 because from here, going to west, this is 180 plus this 73.45 degrees. So let us have here 180 plus 73.45 degrees. So let us use our calculator here. That is equal to 253.45. 253.45 degrees. Now, paano ba natin isusulat yung final answer natin? Dahil we already have here our final angle. So, for our final answer, we have d sub r is equal to 17.80 meters, comma, 253.45 degrees. And this is now our final answer for our three vectors here.